Hi, I'm Debbie Bond, and welcome to Ironside's Take 30. Today, Bob and I are going to share with you a little bit about Cognos Analytics and their explorations feature. Bob will share with you a couple of the key takeaways on explorations and demo the product, and we always allow Q&A, so please throughout the session ask a couple questions if something comes to mind. And I just wanted to share a little bit about our Take 30 page. You can find this on ironsidegroup.com. If you go to the blue bar on the top and click, you'll get to our Strategies for Success page, which is our Take 30 listing. There's a couple of different things you can do on that page. One is if you want to talk one-on-one with a BI expert, click the link, schedule some time, and you can ask your questions one-on-one. The second is you can see the agenda of what's coming up here in October. And then the third is at the bottom of the page, we have all the previous Take 30 recordings, so you can go and watch something that you might have missed in the past.
All right, thanks very much. Good morning. My name is Bob O'Donnell, senior consultant with Ironside. I've been with the organization now for a little over 3 years. Before that, I was with IBM, and prior to that, Cognos before the acquisition in a pre-sales role. So I have sadly like a 2-decade history of working with Cognos and the Cognos tool set. And joining later, hopefully, will be my boss, Scott Massage, who's the practice director for the BI group here at Ironside. So let's get started. We're going to take a look at explorations today. So the exploration feature was released in September of 2018. So it's been out there for a little over 2 years. It was part of the very first 11.1 release. Which was 11.10. We will be demoing 11.17 today. And if you haven't heard, there should be some information coming out very soon because 11.17 is going to be the long-term release for 11.1. So 11.2 will be talked about soon by some folks at IBM to let you know what's coming with that. I think that's coming up later on in October, and then you'll have a pretty good idea what the time frame is for that. So IBM refers to explorations as a flexible workspace for exploring and analyzing data. It gives you a capability or capabilities that kind of combine a number of different things. So for those of you familiar with originally with Watson Analytics, it was a web-only tool, and it had predictive and forecasting capabilities built into it. But you had to basically, it was a standalone tool. You had to upload information. You didn't get the rich set of objects that you can get now with it. So that they've pulled that in. Obviously, exploration contains a lot of information regarding dashboarding and stories. So you'll see some commonality there as well. And then the AI part of it. So the ability to ask questions and let the tool give you some insights into the information and data that you're looking at. The idea there is it removes the user's bias. So inevitably, and there's been a lot of talk about this, the fact that as you look through or explore or analyze your information, a lot of times you have preconceived notions about what that information is going to tell you, and that's just common nature. You have part of your business or part of your job is to know your information, and a lot of times you can overlook things that may not be so obvious. So exploration gives you a fresh set of eyes, so to speak, to look at the data that you need to analyze. Multiple points of entry is nice for explorations. There's a number of different ways you can get into an exploration. You can just start one from scratch in the new option down at the bottom. We'll take a look at some of these. You can actually pick a data source and select explorations, or if you're in a dashboard, you can actually pick a visualization and go into an exploration that way as well. And it allows you to access multiple different data sources as well. So if I've uploaded a CSV or an Excel file, I can do an exploration off of that. data sets, data modules, and the old framework manager packages as well. So you have a broad scope of data that you can access for explorations. So let's go ahead and take a look at exploration, shall we? So I mentioned before I'm in Cognos 11.1.7. I'm going to, as I mentioned before, so if you go into new here, I can open up an exploration that way and pick data sources directly if I want. But in this case, I'm going to go over to my team content folder. I have demo content, and I have a data modules folder here. So I'm going to look at customer loyalty data module. Open up the little ellipsis there, and if I create exploration, it's going to open up the exploration UI for me. So this is where you start with all explorations. It's basically, this is one of the cards, if you will, and we'll take a little look at that later on as far as some of the other things that you can do. At this point, I just want to ask you where you want to start. You can pick any one of these objects, or you can just skip and say, show me anything. But in this case, I'm actually going to look at customer lifetime value. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. What that's going to do is go back into the data source and take a look at, excuse me, customer lifetime value and what affects that. How are the relationships between the data? Now over here on the right hand side, you get a number of different visualizations that you just as some examples. If you like any one of these and want to save these as a card, just go ahead and click on the add icon or add link right there, and that adds it to your cards. Over here on the left hand side, you see the cards. So these are basically little dashboard pages of information that you can save and store and toggle back through. If we look through this whole left hand side, the navigation, so this is the data source pane that I have access to here. These are any pinned items that I may have saved from other dashboards or stories or other explorations as well. So these are saved, something that I might want to share in another dashboard or another exploration. And then the AI assistant that we will take a look at later as well. So this relationship diagram, you'll see here I've got customer lifetime value. It's looking at quantity sold, revenue, and then coupon response. If I hover over any one of these, you'll see that the strength of that relationship is 52%. For revenue, it is 26%. I have a slider down here that I can move around, and it's actually going to change the objects that I see. So I can slide around the percentages to hide and show information that I want to focus on, or if I want to avoid. If I click on edit diagram here, I can click on the secondary relationships. That's going to expand this out to another level, multiple levels actually. And again, so that slider is still going to work there. So if I want to shorten this up or broaden this and take a look at a number of other different objects, I can do that as well. So let me go ahead and turn that off. And I can actually edit the scope as well. So if I come in here, now I know for a fact that revenue and quantity sold are important factors for that, but I'm going to minimize those. So this is now just going to focus on the one object that I have, which is my customer lifetime value, and then the coupon response. So I can focus this down to something very specific. So next thing I want to do is on the far right hand side here, I can actually click on this card and it's going to bring it front and center for me. So it gives me a little bit of information regarding the relationships I have here. So if I look up here in the upper left hand corner of the customer lifetime value, if it's a single driver, it's in blue. If it's two drivers, it's in orange. And if it's a combination of drivers, it's in green. So if I go ahead and click on those, one at a time, my predictive strength for quantity sold is 48%, and I see down here a specific visualization that goes along with that. If I click on two, excuse me, you'll see that the two objects show up. So I've got quantity sold and coupon response, that's 55%, and the visualization changes. And finally, if I go back to the combination one, the visualization again changes. So it's the visualization you're seeing is dynamic based on the data that you're looking at. And in this case, the predictive strength is 60% across multiple different objects. So what I can do now is I'm going to go ahead and click on this visualization and expand that out. Now, if you start to take a look at this, you're going to see some similarities between this and the dashboarding or stories UI. So on the left-hand pane, I have my navigation components that we touched on briefly before. And the right-hand side, I have some details and fields and properties that we'll look at a little bit more. Details are always available for you. There's going to give you some additional information regarding the objects that you're looking at, and those are detail information that is brought together by the product, by the tool, based on the metadata available on the actual data that you're looking at. So in this, I'm looking at a tree diagram. I can actually go ahead and look at tree sunburst if I want. You'll see the nodes here. I can look at all the items. If I want to focus on top 5, it'll enumerate those for me. Bottom 5 as well. I can just go back to all, and if I go ahead and select rules, so this is going to give me some textual information about the rules that are defined, are set up based on the data that gives me this this tree diagram. So that's some helpful information on as far as how the data that you're looking at is associated with other objects, and then how it's displayed in the tree diagram. All right. So next thing I want to do is I'm going to go over into my AI assistant. And one of the nice features here is I can actually just start to type in a question. So as I click on the ask a question dialog, it actually comes up with show. So if I go ahead and click show, and I can start to type in, I say, you know what, show me customer, and it actually types ahead. So if I look at show customer lifetime value, and I want to say buy, and if I start to type in product line, there it is. So if I go ahead and select that, I now have a question. If I go ahead and hit enter, that question is posed to the exploration tool. And it basically goes back and finds me a number of different visualizations that it thinks might have something to do with my question. So I've got a column chart here, bar chart, point chart, and a few others that I can take a look at. I can create a dashboard from this chart, and it actually shows me some of the other data sources that I have access to that fits that question. So again, looking at the metadata and the information in the data, it has an idea about what I might be looking for, and it's giving me other options as far as some of the data that I have access to as well. So what I'm going to do now is click on new card. And I'm just going to select a single card for now. And I'm going to drag this visualization into my sandbox pane, my middle pane. Now, so again, very common, similar look and feel to dashboarding. So again, I still have my details pane here where it's going to bring me some information regarding the objects I'm looking at, the fields I have access to. And then some properties, limited compared to the dashboarding capabilities, but it gives me some capability to say, you know what, I want to see my values by percentage of the color. So I'm looking at something that's going to be a little bit more intuitive for me to figure out what I'm looking at as far as the numbers are concerned. So what I want to do here is I'm going to go back into fields, and you'll see I've got the bars and the length and all of the other information I have access to. Down here I have local filters. So I'm going to click back up into the left-hand side here in the navigation pane, and I'm going to open up member purchases, and I look down here that I have a field called loyalty status. So I want to filter this on loyalty status, but what I can do now is if I click in the local filters area and I start to type in loyalty, it actually brings up the objects or the metadata items that actually match what I just started to type in. So I'm going to go ahead and select loyalty status. And from this, I'm going to filter on my top 3 loyalty status settings. So that's VIP, Platinum, and Elite. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now I've limited this visualization to just those 3 loyalty status groupings. you'll see here that clearly those three groups spend a lot of time thinking about photography and spending a lot of money on that, which is great. So what I want to do now is I want to compare this visualization to something different. So if I click on the compare link right here, up top in the middle, it's going to give me some options. So do I want to create a comparison myself, and it's just going to open up the UI to let me drop in another visualization? I can duplicate the chart I'm looking at. I can come up, it can recommend something for me. So in this case, it wants to recommend looking at income. But down here at the bottom, since I actually use filters, I can invert those filters. So if I go ahead and click on that, it's going to change my view to do a comparison between these two visualizations. So let me slide this back over and get more space. So now I've got side by side the two visualizations basically created from the one that I started with. If I go ahead and click on this, if I look at fields, I've got loyalty status excluding the three that I picked. And if I click on the original one, it includes those three. So what I can do while I'm in the compare view, so I've got a couple of options here. I've got hide or show the comparison line. The comparison line is right here. So I can turn that on and off. I can hide and show the information down at the bottom. So if I turn that off, it actually expands out the visualizations. I'll turn that back on. And I have a number of sync capabilities. So I can sync selections, the compare line, axis scale, and action. So axis scale obviously is the two axes for the two visualizations. You want to be able to look at the two across the same values so that you're actually comparing bars. You don't necessarily have to, you can turn it off, but it's on for now. My compare line is also another thing. So if I slide this up, you'll see that both of those change as I go. And selection, so if I select something from one side or the other, both of those values are selected on both sides. Now, the last one we looked at is actions. So actions is based off of syncing any filters or sorting that you do. So if I come in here and I look at fields and I go to customer lifetime value, and I'm going to open up the sort, and I'm going to say sort that descending, you'll see that both of the charts sort descending based off of that because I had the sync set up there. So a very strong, powerful capability in exploration that allows you to compare similar or different data sets and objects. We had a question recently about what are the limitations here. So there really are no limitations. I don't necessarily have to build these two visualizations based on the same dimensional values or measures. Now, that being said, there's nothing in the product that's stopping you. But if I put two completely different objects in these two visualizations, I'm not really comparing anything. So you can see things side by side very easily, but in order to get the best benefit from the compare capability, you want some kind of commonality between the two. All right. So what I'm going to do now, a little bit of a change tack here. I'm going to click on new card. Once again, I'm going to click on single. Now, if I click on the choose a type here, it's going to bring up all of the visualizations I have access to. Now, this list is very similar to what you have available in dashboarding and stories, and getting closer to what you have access to, the reporting environment, which gets better and more in sync every version that's released. Now, what I want to do in this case is I'm going to go ahead and select a line chart. And so again, I've got a number of fields. You'll see I've got some drag zones here that I can use. I'm going to change from member purchases, easy for me to say, into my overall sales. And I am going to take a look at quantity sold. And I'm going to go ahead and drag in month into the x-axis. And what it's going to do is go ahead and build me a visualization. Now you see that the months currently are not defined as a sort. They're actually sorted alphabetically, which is no good. So what I can do in here not able to sort it on another column yet. Hopefully that's coming very, very soon. But I have the ability to do a custom sort. So I can actually come in here and select one at a time. So January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, and I'll just slide down here and say September, October, November, and December, and click apply. And now I've sorted those based off of a month. So kind of a stopgap thing for the time being, but it gives you the flexibility to sort things that you don't have, not are would be sorted out of order based on what you actually want to see. So that's a nice benefit there. So one of the things I like to do too is, so there's a couple things that one has been here for a while, so I have the ability to turn on insights. So if I select, I can turn on and off average and meaningful differences. So those would be shown up here. And if I can go ahead and just turn those off. And finally, I have the ability to do forecasting as well. So if I click on that, by default, forecast periods, I have the ability to do a confidence level of 90, 95, or 99. I can change my forecast periods if I want to go out 6. So it'll actually expand that out. So you see I'm actually forecasting out. Now this is a very flat line because it's just a single thing. So if I go in here and I drag in, let's say I'll drag in product line. And now that's going to break that visualization out into the multiple different product lines across all of my months. And it's going to let me see my forecast moving out across those 6 items, which are six periods, which I selected, and figure out that information for me. So forecasting available in dashboards as well, but a key part of exploration and a lot of the predictive information that is gleaned from the data based off of, again, the metadata and the actual values that are available to you. So one last thing I want to do is, if I go back into AI Assist, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. Now, you'll see here I have the option to create dashboard. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that and hit enter. And what that's going to do is go ahead and take, based off of the information available in the data source I was working on, it's actually going to create me a dashboard. And so this has got 3 tabs in it: sales total, customer lifetime value, and loyalty status. And as you see, this starts to build out. We've got a number of different visualizations. Some of these are look familiar from what we were looking at in the exploration as well, and some of them are brand new. You'll see that based off of, again, the metadata, it looked at the ability to put things on a map based on a postal code, so it's done that. And then finally, loyalty status as well. And as I mentioned before, so if I get into the, select any one of these objects here, it's kind of the ability to go full circle with the tool I mentioned before, the exploration can be accessed from a number of different spots. If I click on this link right here, this will actually open up the exploration feature based off of the visualization I'm looking at. So again, I have the ability to just create a blank exploration. I can point it at a data source, or I can actually look at a specific visualization in a dashboard or a story, and it allows me to focus on getting some information that I might not have known about that data in a very easy manner. So that's a quick demonstration of explorations. Thank you very much for your time. Debbie, were there any questions?
Thanks, Bob. So far, we only have one, but if anybody else has anything else, please remember just to put them in the chat window. So the one question we had to do with data sources. Are there any things that should be considered when you're looking at data sources for explorations?
Good question. There's actually a few things. So one of the things that we learned from the offering manager for exploration that we talked to probably about 2 weeks ago now, and actually he helped us with this demo material. So thank you very much for that. Olap sources are not a great source for explorations as it stands right now. I know that they're working on that. My take on that is I don't think Olap sources would be a very good source anyway, because of a couple of reasons. One, it's aggregated data, so you're losing the nuance of the detail information, and a lot of times that non-biased look and that aha moment may come from something that you haven't added to the cube or is not available at the granularity that explorations would need it. And also, I think just the idea of building an Olap source or a cube is adding some business bias to it. So you're looking to answer specific questions with that. So that's what you're building into the cube. So that's one of the things. Obviously, I mentioned Excel spreadsheets, CSV files. Those are all great. Data modules if you want to pull multiple things together. Framework manager packages as well. One of the things to be aware of framework manager packages. So there's an option for enriching the package. If you haven't done that, we strongly recommend it. And I'm not even sure if the newer versions will work without it, because there is metadata associated with a lot of the objects in a framework manager package that Explorations uses that by default the framework package metadata does not contain. So that's a big plus there. Definitely, obviously DQM required, and then enrich package. And I think finally, just on a data volume, I mean, it's one of those things where the more data that you have access to, the more insights you can glean, either just from analysis you're doing or from exploration. That being said, if you overload it with data, you don't want to wait a half an hour for every different piece of information that you get. So there's a fine line between just throwing, all your data at it, and then throwing some usable data. I don't want to, I wouldn't be throwing description information at it or long text fields. So at that point, you want to define more of a scoped set of data sets that you want to point at it. But excellent question.
Thanks. And we actually have two more questions. I'm going to tell you them both at the same time, just for time, because I think one is more of a nomenclature. By exploration, do you mean dashboard itself? That was the first question. And then the second is, how is the performance? Is it better than using FM package directly?
So exploration is a completely different tool. It uses the dashboarding engine clearly, because a lot of those are the same, but it is a different object. I would say dashboarding is more potentially a build and share object, where I think exploration is a single user analytics tool that you're trying to find information on. As far as performance, once you enrich the package, I think you're fine. Now, the thing to be aware of is if I have created a very large framework manager package like I did in the old days, because I couldn't build reports off of multiple packages, that's an awful lot of metadata for the tool to go through. So that could become cumbersome and slow. If it's a newer package built more purposeful for a specific type of reporting, I think that's probably a better path. And if you can quickly just throw, something similar, if you have that big package and you want to just do something with a data server, just create the data source connection, drag a few tables in, some relationships, and let it go at the core data that you have available. So a lot of options with that, I think. So, but good questions.
Thank you, Bob. That's all we have.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining our Take 30, and get to our website to see what's coming next. And we appreciate your time. Thanks.